Hi, my name is Iannielli, and I want to talk a little bit today about what it's like to have anxiety and suffer from depression, and also raising a child who you love and want to be there for and help to the best of your ability in coping with his autism. I have also been dealing with my own situation, which is personal, and I'm trying to integrate my own transition into my life and at the same time do what I need to do for my son. It's very difficult when you're dealing with your own gender identity, and I don't understand sometimes why we need to try to understand what's going on within ourselves. And it took me personally a very long time to accept myself. And I was kind of leaning towards transitioning several times in my life, but for whatever reasons I couldn't. It was always in the back of my mind. I was of the thinking that I probably would never have married or brought a child into the world, and that I was going to focus solely on transitioning from male to female. I thought that was my best strategy. I never married for a long time. In fact, I consider myself a late bloomer. I remember going to a therapist a couple of years after my mom's death, trying to cope with that. I was in my early 30s. And when I was going to her, the reason why I sought her out was because she was a therapist who specialized in transgender issues. So it was my intention to speak to her and try to get guidance into the process of transitioning from male to female. And I was pretty nervous. I didn't know what to do about it, what to expect. And when I talked to her, I got mixed signals because I was looking for encouragement in transitioning, and she kind of pushed me into a different direction. But I still talked a lot about my feelings and thinking of wanting to do that. And after going to her for several years, I would say at least 3 years, I mean, we talked a lot. We talked about my life, my struggles. We talked about my parents, how they were sick and dying. I mean, they died, but my mom unfortunately succumbed to depression and mental illness, and she died in well, she was going back and forth between a psychiatric hospital and a general hospital, and eventually she died in the regular hospital because they needed to hook her up to tubes and all, and she became very weak. And I remember visiting there, and it was heartbreaking. You know, I couldn't even communicate with her. She was so out of it. But those memories stay in my mind, and it's very hard. It's very emotional. And then when I was explaining all the feelings I had about losing my mom and seeing my dad struggle, it was hard. And I thought, you know, if I focused on the transition, that it might help. The problem also was that I was still living with my father, so there was no real, it wasn't possible to transition that in that living arrangement. So it seemed to me that as much as I wanted to do the surgery, hormones, and all that, it wasn't going to happen, at least at that time in my life. So we started focusing on me trying to come out of my shell and talk to people, and in that process, hopefully try to meet someone, you know. I always knew, despite the fact that I was transgender, I was always more fascinated with women. I guess in a way it was because I wanted to learn from them and try to integrate what they had into my own life, because deep down I identified as a woman, and I wanted to learn how to, you know, integrate some way the femininity that I thought I should display in public. You know, I wasn't out, I wasn't dressing in women's clothes at that time. So the therapist took a different strategy, and we focused on me meeting somebody. And she gave me a name of a girl to call, and I did, and we kind of hit it off. She was pretty shy, I was pretty shy, but we met. I went to Bayside and I picked her up at her sister's house, and we went to a movie. We went to see Mr. Bean movie when he was working as a security guard in the museum, and Burt Reynolds was there in the movie. It was funny. It was a good movie. I like Rowan Atkinson, Mr. Bean. And then we went to the mall, walked around, and we also went to Applebee's for a nice meal. So it was a nice outing. You know, I was pretty shy, and, you know, I hadn't dated much before. So I did my best to communicate and to have fun in the process. And, you know, I kind of enjoyed the company and being out and doing something that was social. And we actually started going out more. And we went to movies, and we went out to restaurants. So despite what I felt inside as a transgender woman, I couldn't tell my wife to be. she's my wife who I met. We're married now 20 years. Our son is 20. But I couldn't tell her what I was going through. I didn't know what to do about it, so I just kept it a secret, like I did with everybody in my life. And there were times when I wasn't really thinking about it, though I always had feminine clothing nearby. And in a way, my escape or my way of getting to express the femininity in me was to dress up, but I had to hide the clothes so she wouldn't find out. And when my dad was living in Long Island, we stayed at his house because I wasn't quite ready to buy or rent even. I guess I was ready, but financially it was going to be a struggle. So my dad was very open to us staying there, and it was Maria and myself, and then eventually Matthew, who came into our lives in December of 1998. We married in a civil service wedding in 1997 after Christmas, and had a church wedding in September of 1998, and then Matthew was born in December of 1998. It was a very exciting time, and I was happy. I was married. I had a son now, and my focus was taking care of my family and hoping that Matthew would, eventually grow into childhood. So I had things to look forward to. I remember when Matthew was born, when my wife gave birth, it was nice when she cradled our son in her arms. And then the nurse wanted to give her a rest because she went through that surgery. And she summoned me over to watch her clean Matthew's feet, hands. It was very it was nice. I thought, wow, this is my son, and he's so tiny, and he's in good hands with the nursing staff and the doctors. And so I was all excited, obviously, and I knew that whatever I was going through inside, I was probably going to just, walk away from that. I thought now my life has changed for the better. I was married, we had a child, I was working, I was doing everything that I was supposed to do as a man, provide for my family, take care of our children, and, be that masculine role for my wife and my son. Over the years, though, I knew there was something not right because I was still drawn to women's clothing. Even after purging clothes, I still found myself drawn to wanting to have a wardrobe and wearing pretty dresses and expressing my femininity. And I felt that I was much happier. You know, I didn't feel comfortable in men's clothes. I felt kind of stifled and smothered. It was like I was suffocating. I didn't like it. And I only could handle it if I had women's clothing on underneath. So that was something I usually did on a regular basis. So I was very concerned that if for instance, I was working in a professional setting as an accountant and eventually as a CPA, and I wore suits and ties, you know, and trousers. Um, Underneath, though, I would sometimes wear a dress. And so the joke in the office was, why did I always wear a suit jacket? I never took it off. Well, there was a reason for that. It's because when I went to work, if I took my jacket off, they could see the dress underneath my shirt. And so I wasn't gonna take that risk. So I always wore the jacket. And there were many times when people in the office would say, how come you're always wearing your jacket? And I didn't want to talk about it. I just avoided it. And I carried on my business. I had work to do. I had to focus. And I wasn't going to get distracted and worry about what people thought. Who cares if I wore a jacket? I didn't care. I just did it. And I worked. You know, I was very dedicated to what I did. I wanted to do the best I could. Obviously, I had to make a living. And when you bring a child into the world, it makes you want to do everything correctly and properly and make sure you're providing properly for your family. So things were going smoothly, so to speak, and I thought everything was going to work out. But unfortunately, when Matthew was around 2.5, Maria discovered that he wasn't communicating properly. He wasn't making eye contact. He seemed delayed in a lot of the normal developments that children go through, young kids, toddlers, and Matthew just wasn't getting there. So we took him to get checked and to see what was going on with him. And then we learned, obviously, that he was autistic. I don't remember what my first impression was when they told us. All I remember was kind of trying to figure out what this all means. You know, I kind of was puzzled. I didn't really know. I mean, years ago I read a book about an autistic woman, and it was quite interesting, but I couldn't get my bearings right when I learned that Matthew was autistic. It just hit me in a bad way. And then I suggested to Maria that we go to support groups and find out how to deal with it and try to help our son the best we could. Well, when they got the diagnosis, they helped us get Matthew into early intervention, which helped him to some degree. And it was good. We'd have predominantly women come to the house and, do therapy and trying to train him in ways that he could, hopefully move forward. And I didn't really see all of that because I was working at the time. So my life is complicated. I can't really sort it out in a video format, but I'm trying to understand what I went through and how to relate it to other people and maybe help someone in the process. But my life became more complicated now because I was married and I had a son and I was working in a career and we were looking to buy a house. Initially we rented, and maintaining a car. So there was a lot of pressure, and I escaped that in some ways by dressing up like a woman. I obviously had to be secretive about it, but it helped me up here because I was going through struggles. I didn't get any diagnosis at that time. All I knew was I was a male to female identity. I didn't know much about transgender or transsexual other than when I was a teenager I read about Dr. Renee Richards. She was a tennis player. She was born Richard Raskind, and she in her adult life decided to transition from male to female, and she actually still competed in tennis after, I guess, legal judgment. And she was treated as a woman on the tennis circuit after, I guess, some lawsuits. But she had an impact on me. I would find her story pretty interesting. And I read about, who else? Oh, a model, Tula. I think that was her name. She was a model from England. And she transitioned, I think, at age 17. So reading about the two of these transgender women at different ages in their lives, transitioning for the same result, made me start to think and wonder, was I heading in that direction also? And I did know that I identified as a girl, and I couldn't stop thinking like that. But when I got married and we had a son, I had to put that in the back of my mind, not think about it. Everything seemed good, everything was normal. Even though I had those lingering feelings. And I think working helped me, and also coming home to my son and holding him felt nice, and talking to Maria. My eye is so itchy. I can't deal with these itches. And my thumb too, it's still, see, I have my little, what do you call this thing? Splint, which hurts too. I take something like this. I take Motrin. It helps a little bit. You have to excuse me. I'm going through a lot of things. I'm stressed. I'm hoping to do the transgender surgery at some point. I have my surgeon, so I'm in communication with him. And what was I saying? I was trying to provide for my family, and I was trying to put aside those thoughts about being transgender. And everything seemed to be going okay. And then when we had the chance to buy a house, my employer kind of pointed me in the direction of buying a property or our residence. And that's when the pressure really came into my life, because now I was committed to a mortgage 30 years, and I was in my late 30s at the time. So, excuse me, I'm sorry. So, I fell into a pattern, a routine, whatever you want to call it. You know, going to work every day, taking care of my son and wife, trying to do everything that a young family would do, you know, and everything seemed fine. But several years into the marriage, I started cross-dressing again. I tried to hide it. I tried to just do it out in secret places. And one night, when I was at home in the living room watching TV, I was wearing a dress. And my wife came out, and I tried to hide or something, or put a blanket over me so she wouldn't see the dress. But I couldn't. I didn't have enough time. So she saw me and she said, "What are you doing?" And I said, "I'm just trying to cope with stress in my life, and I find dressing up as a female helps me." She didn't believe it, but we left it at that. And then I tried to stop again. And so I was like on and off with the dressing. And then after several years, I kind of didn't even think about it. I just put it in the back of my mind, never really thinking that I would ever transition anyway. I thought it was a lost cause. And I said, why waste my time thinking about this if it's not going to happen anyway? So I just carried on as a guy like I always had to. Jeez, I'm so tired. I need to do videos in the day instead of night. So, you want to know now why I'm transitioning? 6 years ago, I came out as transgender. 2 years before I came out, no wait, my dad died in 2009. Unfortunate, he committed suicide. So naturally we were devastated. And then I had a friend who called me when he found out. and he was the first to talk to me in the aftermath of my father's death. And we talked like definitely over an hour on the phone. And he helped me. He was good. He listened because I was not doing well at that time. And so he helped me get through my father's death. We were good friends. And then while I was working at a client's office, when I was working in the CPA firm, I managed the account where my friend, the bookkeeper, worked. He's the one that talked to me after my father's death, and we became good friends. He was a bookkeeper, and I enjoyed going there even though it was in Connecticut. From Long Island to Connecticut, it was worth it. So we were good friends. We exchanged Christmas gifts, and we also had each had a child. My friend had a daughter, and I had a son. So we would show pictures of the family and all, and we really became close. After I left the CPA firm, I was working at one of their clients as an employee, and one of the staff accountants knew that I was friends with Moses was his name, and she came up to me and said, "Did you hear about what happened to Moses?" And I said, "No." And she said he passed away, and I was devastated by the news because I was good friends with him. He helped me through my father's death, and now he was gone. He was only 40, and he had a baby girl and his wife. And when I went to his wake and seeing him laid out, I just couldn't handle it. I felt very upset and depressed about it. And then when I saw his little girl, I said, "Oh my God, now she's going to grow up without a father." And it hurt me. It really hurt me a lot. I didn't know what to say to his wife. All I could do was hug her and say, "I'm very sorry." And then I went to say my last goodbyes as I saw him laying in the coffin, and I prayed. They had a funeral, but we weren't, it was only close family. But I went to the funeral home with some gifts for his daughter. I felt so bad, and I wanted to, as a gesture of trying to help the little girl by giving her some toys and clothes. It was not, I couldn't express my feelings. I was so upset. So a couple of weeks after going through that, I started to sit down and try to figure out what was going on with me. And that's when I realized, I didn't want to be upset and miserable in my life. I went through life going through the motions basically and pretending that I was fine when in reality I wasn't. Being transgender is not something easy to explain to anybody. And obviously, when you're in that life, there's not many people who understand other than people who identify similarly to you. So that's when I started to seek help. And when I came out, it was not easy because I lost my job. And it affected me psychologically. And then I started to doubt myself if I should transition or not. But when I saw my friend, I said, I don't want to die never being happy. I mean, I was happy at times in my life, you know, how could I not? I had a wife, I had a son, I went to college, I had wonderful parents, you know, so I did have a good life. But I was also struggling because I wasn't comfortable presenting as a male. So when I lost my job, I had a breakdown emotionally. I wound up in the hospital. And that's when I got diagnosed with, well, obviously I was already labeled transgender, so that wasn't earth-shattering news to me. But I was also diagnosed with bipolar disorder and depression. And so that's when I had to go on medication, antidepressants and psychotropic medications. And I also needed to start seeing, once I got released from the hospital in the city, Bellevue, they hooked me up with Mount Sinai, where I saw a psychiatrist, a therapist, and I was going there regularly for the next 3 years. So from 2013 to 2016, I was going to Mount Sinai. I had psychiatrists that kind of were revolving door. You know, once I got used to a psychiatrist, then they moved me to a new psychiatrist. My therapist was constant all throughout that 3 year period, which was good because he's the one that I saw most of the time. And we got to talk about my life, my background, my family, my parents' unfortunate deaths due to mental illness and suicide. And obviously, I also talked to him about what was going on with me, being a father to an autistic son, married, but also now presenting as a woman. And I knew that was the way I had to go. So I got to explain and express all these feelings I had. He helped me get on long-term disability and Social Security disability, in addition to the lawyer that was helping me. And I was going weekly to my therapist and monthly to my psychiatrist. When it came to him moving on and I having to see someone else, I couldn't continue at Mount Sinai anymore because they didn't really have anybody there to see me after my therapist had to break the news to me that he could no longer see me because he was moving on in the hospital. He was, I guess, going into some more teaching related matters. So I had to well, I was going to Callan Lord also for my hormones. Callan Lord was really instrumental in my transition from the beginning. And the doctor who I was seeing said, we can get you into the therapy in Callum Wood. So that's when I went to Callum Wood. But my psychiatrist at Mount Sinai, my psychiatrist and my therapist wrote letters because I was also now going to another part of Mount Sinai for transgender um, medication, transgender medicine, and surgery. And I needed a letter. I was hoping eventually to do transgender surgery. And I get mixed up with the times, the frame, it was roughly, yeah, it was like 2016. Yeah, 2016 also was when I did vocal cord surgery to try to feminize my voice. And that was done by Dr. Corey at Mount Sinai. Good, very good, wonderful doctor. And I started to go to the transgender clinic, and I was introduced to Dr. Ting, because Dr. Ting is the one who's doing the transgender surgery, and he works with Dr. Marcy Bowers. And then I got hooked in with Dr. Purohit. He's Indian. Rajveer, MD. Rajveer Purohit. I don't know how to pronounce the name really, but he's a nice guy. I love him. And we're hoping to do the surgery. But I've got these health issues going on now that I'm worried about. Because my doctors, my rheumatologist, well, my primary doctor, my rheumatologist, my endocrinologist, my psychiatrist determined there's something wrong with my liver. I have high enzymes in my liver. So my psychiatrist took me off of my psychotropic medications and my antidepressants. So I'm only taking a few medications now in addition to my hormones. And I don't know, I'm kind of worried because not only am I going through that, but I'm also, I was also informed that I have polyps in my gallbladder. I don't know what the ramifications of that is, but it sounds pretty serious. And I asked my doctor point blank, I said, what is the prospect of me still being able to do the surgery from male to female? And they're trying to help me. I gotta change my diet. I have to try to figure out ways of hopefully reversing what these issues I'm facing. You know, I've been wanting to do surgery for the transgender transition for the longest time, and I've already had 2 missed opportunities. So now I'm hoping that I can go through for this time and everything will work out. I know there's a lot of maintenance. I know what you got to do in the aftermath of having male to female transgender surgery. I have friends who've gone through the surgery and they seem happy. And I'm hoping that I will have the same results. But right now everything's in a holding pattern. We're hoping for August for the transgender surgery. I'm also concerned about my son. And I have to realize that if I do the surgery, I'm going to have recovery time. And it's going to take a little time. And I also need to know that once I have surgery and I have a vagina, I'm going to have to use a dilator and dilate for the So the surgery requires that you have to do these things to avoid that area where you had the surgery from closing up. So that's why you need to dilate, and you have to do it every day for the rest of your life, essentially. So that's one thing I'm concerned about. But I guess if my friends can do it, then I should be able to do it as well. Um, it's not easy when you're trans or anything that you have that makes you different. It's not easy, but you try to cope with it. My way of coping for a long time was to avoid it, suppress it, believe that it wasn't there, and try to, completely wipe your mind of it. But it always comes back like a ton of bricks, and you have to make that decision eventually. You can't run away from something like that. It's gonna it's gonna hit you sooner or later, like it did me. So now I'm just trying to cope, trying to help my son, trying to maintain the family and the marriage and the house while trying to balance surgery. And it's hard too because I'm not working now. I'm trying to figure out what I should do with the rest of my life. And also I have financial concerns. I'm worried about things like that. And I'm isolated. My son too. And we're also dealing with the fact that Matthew may have to go into a group home, which is breaking my heart because he's our only child, and I don't know what's best for him right now. I wish that I knew. All I know is the Medicaid caseworker is trying to push us into putting him into a group home. And unfortunately, I think that's what's going to happen. And it's tearing me up inside. It's really affecting me. And I wished I could help my son better than I am. I feel very guilty and selfish because of my need also to do surgery, and I'm not going to be able to give Matthew the time that he needs for that time of recovery. I don't want to portray transitioning as the cure-all for what's going on with you in regard to how you perceive yourself gender-wise. For me, transitioning had its moments where I wish they could have been better, but that's the reality of life, not everybody understands. And unfortunately, a lot of people just don't want to deal with it. And that's what happened with my working situation. Nobody really wanted to work with me. So I had to make some big decisions. I had to liquidate my whole IRAs that I was hoping to rely on in retirement because of my financial worries. I also had a suicide attempt recently, wound up in the hospital. I wanted to die, actually, take myself out of the picture. But my life was spared thanks to the paramedics, the police, the nurses, the doctors. And I guess in retrospect, I should not have done it because I need to be here for my son. my wife, my family. And why would I want to die after coming this far with my transition? It didn't make sense. Nobody said life was going to be easy. That's true, it's not. But you try to find your way, and you find peace in your life. And to me, I have a couple of good friends who seem to be there for me and help me. I wish I could be there for them as well. But all I can do is take one day at a time, as they always say. Live in the moment. You know, I try to do things. I try to write. I try to occupy my mind. I take my son out to movies. I watch TV. I love watching Blu-rays, movies. And I go to my psychiatrist. I go to my therapist. I'm going to a career guidance facility. I don't know what's gonna come of it, but I think anything I try now is helpful. I'm looking forward to the prospects of having surgery, to be honest with you. The surgery for male to female, that is. And hoping that everything works out. It's been a long wait for me. I knew when I was 16 I wanted to become a woman. I wanted to have the surgery. I wanted to live and be happy. And I think I've done as much as I could in my life. I'm not perfect. You know, some things I wished I could do over again. But, you know, I'm not young anymore either. I'm 58. So if I'm going to have surgery, I better do it now. It's now or never. So I want to talk to people. I want to grow. I want to give advice. You know, I'm trying to be the best I can be. I want to be female. I watch a lot of videos on YouTube regarding male to female transitions, and I find myself pretty jealous, to be honest with you, because between you and me, when you see a guy in the beginning of a video, some are kind of good looking to begin with, but some are like real guys, like full beard, mustache, rugged. And then you see what they did with hormone replacement therapy, electrolysis, therapy. You watch the progression of most of these transgender girls, and you're like mystified, because you're saying to yourself, wow, they went from an ordinary guy to a gorgeous woman, and no way could they look so beautiful like that. And I look and I say to myself, how did they do that? They look like women that were born female. I'm trying to do that. but it's not working well enough. Unfortunately, I had long hair down to my shoulders, and I was very happy, and I looked really good, I would say. Not as good as those girls in the videos, but I looked pretty good. I was happy about it. But then, as it always does with me, guilt settles in, and I start thinking to myself, am I being fair to my son, my family? So, I was supposed to have surgery, and I was really gung-ho about it. And then my conscience got the best of me, and stupid, stupid, stupid me went to the hairstylist, and I asked to cut it off. What an idiot I was. And then she dyed it brown too. And then I had to wear men's clothes again because I no longer look like a woman. Oh my God, was I devastated. I thought I would never survive. I told my psychiatrist I couldn't deal with this. I can't do the surgery. I'm not ready. I don't look like a woman anymore. And I was very heartbroken about it. After 2 weeks of dressing as a guy, I said, fuck it, I can't do this anymore. I can't. So I tossed the shirts and the pants. I couldn't stand it anymore. And I started wearing dresses, and I said, I don't give a shit. Long hair, no more. Short hair, I'm just gonna have to do this. And then luckily, over time, my hair is starting to grow. It's gonna take time to get it back down there, but I don't have the anxiety that I did have originally after cutting my hair. I'm not wearing men's clothes anymore, so I'm happy about that. And I'm wearing dresses, and I'm good, I'm happy, and I'm hopefully progressing towards surgery. And hopefully all these health issues will improve. So, long story short, is you have to find out what makes you happy. And you have to realize that nobody should tell you what you should do with your life. You need to make that decision. And you should never be influenced by others if they're leading you down the wrong path. You do what's right for you. And that's what I'm learning too. We only get one chance at life. That's true, only one chance. So you make it the best that you can. And you live to be happy as you can be. And don't ever let anybody kill your dreams. You do what is best for you. And that's what I realized. I need to do what's best for me. I know also I need to take care of my family, my son especially. And if I'm feeling better about myself, it will mean that I'll be better at helping my son and my family. So, cheers to my friends. I love you all. I will keep you updated about surgery, about my life, about my health issues, about my son, my family, and the dresses that I like to wear. And one last thing. Never be afraid to be true to who you are. Own it. Live it. love you guys, girls, transgender women, transgender men, anybody who watches my video. I love you all. I wish you all good lives, peace, happiness, joy. Go out there and live your life. And have an orange vanilla Coke while you're at it. It's my favorite.